Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to another episode of the Becoming Her podcast. I know it's been a while. You have not seen my face in 2 months and a lot has happened, but let me introduce myself. I'm your host, Altheresa Clark, and I am the founder of the Becoming Her podcast, where we talk about how you become her, walking in faith and trusting God in every season. Now, I know it's been 2 months and a lot of you are saying, where have you been? Honestly, I can't believe it's been that long. I can't believe it's been 2 months, but it has been a wild ride these past 2 months. I didn't intentionally take a break, so let me say that. It wasn't intentional, but life had a way of reminding me what deserved my immediate attention. And over the past 2 months, I've been experiencing some incredible highs, some exciting opportunities, but also some personal challenges. And so let's jump right into where have I been, right? So my birthday was in June 23rd, I celebrated another birthday, which was amazing. I got to celebrate with friends and family. I celebrated the whole month. I started celebrating the whole month a couple of years ago, and I got it from my mother, who is now passed away, but she typically celebrated her whole birthday month, which her birthday was July 12th. She's a couple of weeks after me. And I started doing that, and I started being intentional about how I celebrated my birthday. And for me, it was like renewing. It's the start of a new year for me. And so I got to celebrate with friends and family. I did my first 5K, which was amazing because that was a goal for 2026. I got to do ATV riding, which was so fun. I did it for my 30th birthday. So I did it again this birthday and I turned 39. It's the last year of my 30s. And I made a theme. It was walking into my golden era. That was really my theme for 2026. And so I kept with that theme for my birthday. And then I had a birthday dinner. I had a birthday brunch. My son turned 15. His birthday's the day before mine. So we got to celebrate him. We went to an interactive place with him, some kids, family, friends, and then we had a dinner for him. And so June was busy. And then also my youngest son had surgery. He had his tonsils removed a couple of days before my birthday. So that has been the recovery process of that. Thankfully, he's doing well. And so that was June. I had the honor of speaking at my international boule for my sorority, Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, which was amazing. It was my first time speaking at our boule, and I got to speak with an amazing sister of mine, and we talked about trauma and how it shows up in leadership. That was amazing. It was such an amazing experience. For those who are in sororities or fraternities, you understand that your national convention, or whatever you all call it, we call it a boule, it typically happens every 2 years. And you get to see sorors from all over the world. We have an international sorority, so we have sorors in other countries, and it's just an amazing experience. That was my second time going, and I will be back in 2028. So that was amazing. I relaunched my coaching program in my business for mental health professionals who are looking to grow and expand beyond just the therapy chair. So that was amazing doing that. And so a lot of wonderful things, like I said, happened in the past 2 months. And besides those exciting things, some unexpected things happened. My son started experiencing some health challenges in May. For those who follow the podcast, he had some health challenges in March, resolved, and they came back in May. And it was unexpected, but as a mother, everything else comes secondary to that. And so there were doctor's appointments, there were procedures, there's recovery, there's uncertainty. And just, I needed to be present for him and my family. And so during that season, I didn't realize that I needed to take a step back and really just pour into myself and my family. And so sometimes the greatest assignment isn't producing, right? I am a person who I used to encompass my identity in what I could produce, how I showed up, what I could do, how many people I could help. And I learned over time that sometimes you just need to be. And so in those 2 months, I stepped away from a goal. I stepped away from producing. I stepped away from working, and I had to press pause. And life interrupted my plans. I had a whole plethora of things that I wanted to do, and the podcast was one of them. I just launched the podcast, and I was only in episode 2. And then my son's health challenges came up. And so during that time, God wasn't teaching me new things. He was asking me to unlearn some things that I have carried for years. And so today's episode is I want to share with you some things that I've been unlearning in this season that God has put me in with dealing with all of the wonderful things, but also all of the challenges that came up in my personal life with my youngest son. Now, I will say that he is doing great. We just recently went to the doctor, and the doctor has cleared him to go back to all of his regular activities. For months, he was not able to play sports. My youngest is an athlete. He does track, he does football, he does basketball, and he was not able to do any sports actually since March. So April, May, June. So it's been 4 months since he has not been able to do any active sports. And so the doctor recently just cleared him to go back to all normal activities. Thank God. I'm so excited, but I'm also so grateful for how far God has brought my son, my family. This season has been a roller coaster, but I'm so glad that we are on the other side. Now, he still has doctor's appointments and follow-ups, but not so many as he used to. And so the things that he was dealing with have come to be managed. So I'm grateful for that. And so I just wanted to update you all that he is doing well. We're gearing up for football season. So he's super excited about that, to be back with his friends, and he loves sports. So super excited for that. He was also able to pass all of his classes. He missed a chunk of school physically in person. He missed about 2 months of school. And so his teachers and his school was so amazing. I began to homeschool him. I started homeschooling him on and off for the past 4 months. I've been homeschooling him. The last month of school, I completely homeschooled him due to his health challenges. And that was in itself very interesting. I salute parents who homeschool. I realized it's not for me, but I had to. And so I began homeschooling, and I just had to change a lot of systems and processes in my life to be there for my child and really show up in that season for what he needed. And so it was definitely challenging in a lot of spaces, but I'm also grateful that I'm an entrepreneur and I work for myself. So I could be home with him to homeschool him and go to all the appointments and be there for everything. So I am grateful for that. So I just wanted to kind of give you all an update what's been going on for the past 2 months. A lot of wonderful things, but a lot of challenges, but I am glad that God has carried me through all of them. So I want to talk about the lessons that I am unlearning or I have unlearned in this season. Lesson number 1. I am unlearning that I have to be everything to everyone. For many, many years, I was the strong friend, the strong one. I said yes to helping everyone. I said yes to every opportunity. I said yes to helping people solve their problems. And as women, we wear so many different hats. For me, a wife, a mom, a sister, a friend, a business owner, entrepreneur, all the things that I do, I wear a lot of hats and I have to show up in a lot of different ways in different capacities. And for a long time, I convinced myself that those hats that I wore made me strong. But in this season, it really taught me something different. That being strong doesn't mean carrying every burden. It means knowing which ones belong to you. And in this season, in this past 2 months, what really belonged to me was being present as a mother, being present as a wife, really being present for my family in this season and allowing others to care for me. That has been a big, big struggle for most of my life because I was always taught, not directly, but unintentionally or indirectly, that as a strong Black woman, you carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. Don't ask for help. Figure it out. There's nothing that you can't figure out. And I had to work on unlearning those things, but I had to start with saying, listen, I can't be everything to everybody. And that's okay. I had to unlearn that in this season. And in the beginning, it was a struggle because I had things that I had booked. I had promises that I made. I had things that I was going to roll out in my business. I had a plethora of goals, like from, my 2026 goals, checking them off and realizing that in the season for the past 2 months, I couldn't do them. And it was a struggle for me because I am a person, I'm action oriented, but I'm also very meticulous when it comes to my goals. And so I had to realize that I couldn't do it. And when my son needed me, I realized that emails could wait, business meetings could wait, showing up for other people, it could wait. And so The podcast was one of the things that had to be put on pause. My presence with him mattered more than my productivity. It mattered more than my goals. It mattered more than the dreams that I had for 2026. And I had to realize, like, listen, I don't have the capacity. I just cannot. And so I challenge you all to ask yourself, what are you carrying that God never asked you to carry? What are you carrying that God never asked you to carry? And when I asked myself that question, boy, I had a whole list of things that God did not ask me to carry, but I carried them myself. And so once I started with that list, I started realizing that I was showing up in ways that I didn't have to. I am recovering from burnout, but it is so easy for me to slip back into burnout. It is so easy for me to slack on my self-care because I'm an empathetic, caring person. And so I give to a lot of people. And I have to always diligently remind myself to pour into me and pour into my cup. And I will say in the last 60 days, it was a struggle, but I found the time in between, even if it was small moments, to make sure that I wasn't depleting myself. And so lesson number 2, I'm unlearning that rest has to be earned. I used to believe that rest is after one more client, after one more project, after this, after that, and that I had to earn rest. But the reality is that the work is never finished. You're always working on something. And so this season really forced me to slow down, to really look at myself in the mirror and realize that I have to slow down. I had to be present every week or two, depending on the week. There was a doctor's appointment. There was a follow-up. It was constant medical appointments, procedures, all the things. And the reality is that I didn't have the capacity to focus on my child and to focus on the other things that I had on my plate. And so I had to realize I didn't need to earn rest. There's this video, this reel on Instagram that I shared a couple weeks ago. And it was basically the lady saying, no matter what happens in my life, I'm going to lay down. Something good happens, I'm going to lay down. Something bad happens, something amazing, whatever it is, I'm going to lay down. And that is what I learned in the season. No matter what happened, I was going to lay down. And I did. I rested. I'm not a person who takes naps. I don't take naps. I will tell people I struggle with taking naps because I think my mind, especially during the day, my mind is wired. So it's hard for me to take a nap unless I'm tired, like severely tired or sick. Those are really like the two. And on vacation, I can take a nap. Funny enough, on vacation, I can take a nap. And so I realized that rest didn't need to be earned. I could rest. And so in this season, I have learned to rest. I have learned to take naps. Lesson number 3 that I learned is I'm unlearning or unlearn that I can control everything. I cannot. As a therapist, I like solutions. As a business owner, I like plans. I like goals. As a mother, I want to fix everything. And one of the things in this season I learned is watching your child experience health challenges reminds me that there are things that are simply outside of my control. I had to really rely on God to carry my child and carry me through. I had to pray. I had to advocate for my child. I had to ask questions for my child, and I had to trust and surrender to God. This has been one of the most challenging seasons of my life, and not because of me, right? Because of my child and what he was going through and how helpless I felt like a mother because I couldn't fix it. I couldn't do anything to fix it. And so I literally had to release control and fully give it to God and let God do his thing. I had to surrender. And for me, that's hard because I'm a person who does not like to relinquish control. I don't even like surprises. Like my family and friends know, don't surprise me with a party. I don't like surprises. So for me, it was a struggle to say, I cannot control this. I have to allow God to move and to heal my child beyond anything that I could do because he is in control. And so I had to learn to relinquish control. And that was hard, but I got to a place of peace and in storms, I felt like it was a storm. And eventually I got to a place of peace. And eventually I got to a place where I was like, you know what? I have to fully trust God. And I did. And so sometimes faith looks like trusting while you wait. This journey started in March and we are now ending July. And so 4 months of uncertainty, 4 months of fear and anxiety and worry and tears and 4 months. And here we are 4 months later, and my child is walking and talking. And there was this time this year where he was not able to. So I am grateful. And I told myself I'm not going to cry this podcast episode. I might shed a thug tear, but I'm going to try not to and get through it. But it is the power of God and realizing that I couldn't control it and I had to surrender to him. And so lesson 4 I learned is I had to unlearn that my worth comes from productivity, right? So for 2 months, I wasn't recording a podcast episode. I wasn't creating content. I wasn't showing up in a way that I really had a goal to show up on social media and in my business. But God had to remind me that my worth is not measured by what I can produce or what I can do. And so I did feel guilty, but God reminded me that my worth is not connected to what I produce. It's not connected to my output. My identity isn't found in my accomplishments and the things that I do and the value of my business. It's not found in those things. And so really reminding myself of that during this season and saying, you know what? You can sit down. You can take a break. You don't have to show up in the way that you thought you were going to because you have a lot on your plate right now. And so I had to realize that and get comfortable with that. And then it led me to lesson number 5. I had to unlearn that strength means doing it alone. Let me tell you, this was so hard. I'm also in therapy. And while this was happening, I was still having my sessions. Some of my sessions I did at the hospital with my therapist virtually. I'm like, listen, I'm at the hospital, but I need my therapist appointment. And so people were asking, what can we do? My son has been in and out of the hospital during these 4 months. And people would ask, what can we do? How can we help you? And I would say, nothing. There's nothing you can do. There's nothing, we don't need anything. And then my therapist said, you know what? Why do you keep saying you don't need anything? And I said, because I'm just so used to not asking for help. It's just a natural reaction. And she said, I want to challenge you. Come up with a list of things you do need help with. And when someone asks you, tell them one thing from that list. And oh my gosh, when she told me that, I said, I don't want to come up with a list, but I did it. I came up with the list and literally, I want to say, I don't know, a couple of hours later, I was tested. Someone said, hey, what can we do? And I started telling people things I needed help with from the list. And they were small things because, me and my husband were tag teaming back and forth to the hospital and we have an older son and this was still during school. So, I would say, hey, dinner, someone pick my son up from school. Can someone do this? Can someone do that? My business, my leadership in my business, hands down, I wasn't present during that time and my business ran without a hitch. I'm so grateful for my team. I'm so grateful for my friends and family that showed up in this season and anything I needed, they were there. And I'm not the type of friend or person who asks for help, to be honest. It is very rare that I ask for help. And in that season, they knew I needed help. There were some days that I couldn't get out the bed to cook. I was just so tired or I was at the hospital. It was a challenging season and I am grateful for my community of people who showed up. And I realized during that time is that strength does not mean doing it alone. As a therapist, I'm so used to helping others. As a leader, I'm used to carrying other people. But this season really reminded me that strength also is accepting support and accepting help, leaning on my friends and my family and my community. And sometimes the strongest words we can say is, I need help. And so for me, it was such a struggle. But once I really leaned into saying, girl, you need help. You and Sammy, which is my husband, are doing a lot right now. Allow other people, friends and family to help us. And we did. He's also the same. Doesn't like asking for help. And then we both sat down and said, listen, we have to be open to receiving help in this season because this has completely turned our life upside down. And we are in an uncharted territory of dealing with our son's health challenges and health issues. So I had to unlearn that strength does not come from doing it alone. Lesson number 6 I had to unlearn is that growth always feels good. Growth isn't exciting. Growth doesn't always feel good. It's uncomfortable. It's uncertain. It's stretching. But a woman becoming cannot always think like the woman you used to be. Growth requires letting go. Growth requires change. And in this season of the past 2 months, I went through stretching and growing and stepping outside of my comfort zone and uncertainty and unknown. And it was a heavy, heavy season for me emotionally. But I had to unlearn all of those things that I had carried with me throughout my 30 plus years of life and realize that in this season, those things are not going to carry me through. They're not going to help me me in this season of unknown. And so for me, I had to unlearn a lot of those lessons. And so what did I take away from all of those things in this season is that God challenged me to unlearn a lot of things. So I want to ask you, what is God asking you to unlearn in this season? Maybe it's the belief that you can do everything alone. Maybe it's the belief that rest is for lazy people. Maybe it's that asking for help is weakness. Maybe it's that your values are connected to your accomplishments. Becoming her isn't about becoming busier. It isn't about being perfect. It isn't about, trying to prove others right. It's about becoming more aligned with the woman God created you to be. It's about walking in that, being her. And so for me, I had to unlearn those things in this season, and I'm so glad I did. I'm so grateful for a lot of the things that happened in that season, because otherwise I wouldn't be on the other side of where I am now. And to be honest, when I started this podcast, I really thought that the Becoming Her podcast would be about past trials, past valleys, past storms, and boop, I went right into another one at the beginning of this podcast. And I said, you know what? I am going to be honest and transparent. To be honest, I was going to come on here and just choose another topic. But I said, how authentic would this podcast be if I just glossed over the season that I just walked out of through the grace of God? And I thought about, how vulnerable did I want to be on this episode? And I said, you know what? I want to let God lead me, because I know through my test, there's a testimony. And I hope that something that I shared today on this episode will touch the life of another woman, of another person, and really help you, sis, in your becoming journey, because my intention was never to have to show up and go through a storm in the midst of this podcast episode. And no, let me say, I didn't think my life was going to be perfect, but I didn't expect this. This was so unexpected. Literally, like one day it's normal, so to speak, and the next, your life is turned upside down. I know so many other people can relate to that. No matter what the challenge, no matter what the circumstance is, it's relatable. And I wanted to share with you things that I had to unlearn in the season, and things that, helped get me through this season. And so I thank you all for tuning in to another episode of the Becoming Her. I truly appreciate you spending the time with me. I hope this episode encouraged you, challenged you, gave you something to reflect on. I'd love for you all to share this episode with friends, family, your community. Please subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, like our social media pages. Your support is so welcomed, and I'm so grateful for the support I have been receiving thus far. The goal is that we will be consistent moving forward, that we will drop an episode every 2 weeks on all major platforms. That is the intention, as it was 2 months ago. But as you can see, life be life. But I want you all to really remember, Becoming Her isn't about having it all together. It's about having the courage to keep growing and keep going. Extend yourself grace. I know I had to. Walk in your purpose. Choose progress over perfection, and never stop believing in yourself or becoming the woman that God created you to be. Please make sure to take care of yourself. Pour into your cup. Pour into yourself. And I hope and pray that you are encouraged in this season. If you are in a season, have just recently went through a season, or you are on the other side, I hope that you be encouraged. And until next time, take care of yourself. Keep showing up for yourself in your life. You are creating, and keep becoming her. I'll see you on the next episode of the Becoming Her podcast. Thank you, and be blessed.